Good morning. Welcome to IFP Broker Dealer Update number 6, I think. Happy Friday. Hope things are doing well and you're looking forward to a great weekend. To get started, I just want to bring you up to speed on the broker dealer registration process that's underway. We're actually ahead of schedule. I think we're targeting hopefully December 31st to get the registration process completed, which will still give us 3 or 4 months on the other side to make sure everything's right and put in place before we pull the final trigger. So that is progressing very well. On the technology front, we will be beta testing a lot of the new technology in certain offices in the next 30 to 60 days. The idea there is to give them out to the field force and let them try to break them, bash them, knock them around, because we want to make sure we identify all the bugs and all the issues potentially that are with them before we roll it out and start using it for good in 2019. So we'll be bringing more updates on how that's going, and we look forward to that process. We've actually been testing a lot of these technologies in the office for the last several months, but we just now think it's time to let you guys have a shot at it and tell us how it's going and help us put that in place. On a third note, transition to outside custodians can start fairly soon. I'll be addressing that more in the next update next week, but we are close to finalizing, I think, Agreement Express with Pershing and getting all the forms and things in place to enable you to start moving that business sooner than later. Again, so that you'll have at least probably 9 to 10 months to move your advisory business over, which will make it a much better transition process. In terms of transition, the transition packages have been sent out. We've had a lot of questions on those. Now, this is the first run because a lot of the information that we're using may not be totally correct because of where we're getting it and how we're getting it. So part of the reason that we're sending these out and having calls is to make sure we're working with the correct information to start with. We think most of it's right, but we just want to make sure. So we will be reaching out and making additional calls to you. If you want to schedule a call, that's great, but we will be making those calls to make sure that you've got the right information and are dealing with the right facts. I did want to talk about the transition package components a little bit. The first piece is the annual benefit of being with us from a financial perspective through cost savings and other avenues. We think that's a part of the transition package because that's quite honestly a benefit that you get every year and should be considered when making a decision. The second piece is the cash that we'll be paying on those assets that come over to Pershing. That's 5 basis points. And then thirdly is the ownership piece, which is probably the most asked about part of it as of this date. The valuation method is basically based upon a 70 to 75% participation rate or transfer rate for a current business and a 20% growth rate per year. We think both of these numbers are very conservative. Right now we're running about an 85% committal rate based upon our calls. But these numbers do not include the recruiting that we're doing because we're getting a lot of outside interest from a recruiting perspective for people that are looking to join up once we're up and running. The 20% growth rate we think is very conservative. In the past we've averaged somewhere between 25 and 30%. Our organic growth rate is 13 to 15, and so when you add the recruiting to it, we think these numbers are actually a little low. But again, we want to be conservative in terms of what we're putting together because we'd rather overprove rather than and understate rather than the opposite. One of the other components of the transition package that you need to understand is that from an ownership perspective, you're not going to be owning just the broker dealer. You're going to be owning the broker dealer. You're going to be owning the RIA, the insurance company, the plan advisor firm, the insurance operation, and the technology company that's new. We think that some of the technology that we're putting together and the way we're packaging it will be marketable and sellable. And so if we decide to do that, it's quite possible that the valuation from that one piece alone could surpass the others. So, and we haven't included any of those projections in our pro forma. But just be aware that there's additional avenues of revenues and value that we can bring to the table. Next, an update on committals. Again, I said we're running ahead of schedule. We have more than enough now to make this a reality, but we're getting really good feedback from everybody. And for those that are still a little hesitant, they're still looking at doing some additional research just to make sure. which we totally understand and recommend. But so far, we're getting really good comments and feedback on what we're doing. And again, back to the comment on outside recruiting, there's significant interest out there. I think I mentioned last week that I think we've got 6 or 7 OSJs that have reached out to us. Obviously, we can't recruit them per our contract, but I think the fact that they're reaching out tells a story, and we're in one that we're excited to be part of down the road. So. Another aspect of recruiting that we're looking at doing is something that we're going to call crowdsource recruiting. And this is a new concept that we're thinking about, and we want feedback from you. But what this means is that if you as an advisor go out and recruit an advisor to our firm, then we'll pay you a portion of that revenue forever as long as you're with us. And we think that'll do probably 2 or 3 things. One, it'll improve your cash flow. And also provide an incentive for you to maybe bring people to the firm. Secondly, that additional cash flow can increase your value of your firm. And then thirdly, it can increase the value of IFP, which you'll be an owner of. And we think that by having potentially 300-400 recruiters out there, that we'll be able to grow in a fashion that's that far surpasses what any expectation or any assumptions we made in our pro forma. But we think this is something new. Actually, this was an idea Justin Connors broached a while back. I want to give him credit for that. But we think there's some merit to it, so we'll be providing more details on that as we move forward. So just keep on the lookout for that. The final 2 things that I want to address today is primarily some other OSJ comments. I know, again, you're being besieged by OSJs and other firms in terms of recruiting opportunities. And we realized there was a meeting, I think, last week up in Charlotte, and we just wanted to address a couple of the comments and thoughts that came out of that. I think one of the general consensus was, although maybe not mentioned specifically, is that IFP really can't do what they say they're going to do, which I think, quite honestly, is BS. Because we've been doing 85 to 90% of it for the last 20 years, and we'll continue to do so. And we're only expanding a small portion of it, and actually expanding that portion gives us abilities, revenues, and financial strength that the other hybrids don't have, as well as the ability to control our own destiny. So I don't agree with that statement at all. The other thing is, I think IAA, which is one of the firms that are out there, I think they're pressuring everybody to make a decision. I think part of the proposal is, hey, if you come on board by July 1st, we'll waive some fees, which is another $7,500 in your pocket. And while that's all good and for an approach, I kind of liken that to a car salesman. It's kind of like, come in, if you buy this car, let me go talk to my manager. I'll come right back. We'll be able to do this, this, and this for you, but you got to do it by the end of the month. Otherwise, the deal is not valid. There are several reasons why people do this. One is financial, because the sooner they can get you into their hold, then the quicker they start making money off of you. But secondly, the opportunity for you to find a better car is also out there. So the sooner they get you locked up, they avoid that possibility. And that's the reason that we've done things the way we've done them, is that not to pressure you. We want you to have the full 12 months or whatever time it takes for you to make a decision on what's best for you, not what's best for us. And we think that's very significant and important, because these OSJs will be there 12 months from now. So whether you make the decision now or then, they're not going anywhere, at least for now. So I would just say, I don't know that I'd let $7,500 create a situation where I made a major career mistake in choices that I make. So just throwing that out there as a thought. The other kind of idea that came out of that I've heard a few times is by going with another OSJ, you're going through the path of least resistance. And I've never liked that statement, because what that means is that they assume that you're afraid of change. And I think if each of you look back over your lives and you look at the things that you've done and decisions that you've made that have made your lives better and put you in a better position and were really meaningful, those were not going down the path of least resistance. I mean, that's the easy way to go. We think that what we're doing obviously is not that way. It's definitely not that way for the Ham family. I mean, the path of least resistance was to stay with LPL and continue on down that road as best we could. But we just felt like for your sake and ours that we could find another way to do things, and but that involves definitely not going down the path of least resistance. So we want to make sure that we make that point known. We also know that part of the reluctance is the transition, and I think if you take the time to look at the technology and look at the staffing that we're bringing on board and look at the approach that we're taking in terms of transition, this will be a much different prospective transition than you've had in the past, because you're moving assets that are basically already under your control. We already have the data. We're basically exchanging custodians for the most part. It's not like you're coming from a totally different environment into a separate one, and it's not having to be done all within 30 days. We've got, for the most part, 10 months to get this done. So it's apples and oranges. So we think we've done what we can to minimize the risk of that and the pain of that. But we think with maybe a little pain that the outcome on the other side is going to be well worth it. And we've got quite a few people that have already committed that think it will as well. So the other thing I would mention that we did throw out 81 questions to ask. So I hope you're asking those questions of the OSJs that you talk to. We think that will be very indicative of what they can and can't do. And I think to close the session here, there've been a lot of promises made, a lot of contracts and everything else, but basically what it comes down to in my mind is character, integrity, keeping your promises, doing what you say you're going to do. And I think all the other folks that are out there talking to you, they're good people. But I think you've got a track record with us. I think one of the comments that I get a lot is that one of the reasons we're staying with IFP Bill is because you've always kept your promises, or at least tried your best to, owned up to your mistakes and fixed them, and been there on our behalf. And I just want to close by saying that we'll continue to do that until I'm not here anymore, until Chris is not here anymore, or anybody else for that matter, and because we think that's the most important part of what we do. And we're looking forward to serving you in the years to come. So this actually sounds kind of like a political ad. So my name is Bill Ham, and I approve of this message. Y'all have a great weekend.